Welcome to the Be Connected podcast. Today we're talking with Carlie Rice, the studio manager of Guymer Bailey in Brisbane. Guymer Bailey is known as one of those lovely people in the industry with some fantastic culture, great things like they have a GBA art show and also a 9-day fortnight, as well as Carlie has developed a CPD program on transgender. Let's jump on in and have a fantastic chat with Carlie, a bit about her background and the great things that she's been developing. Brilliant. Carlie, thank you so much for joining us today on the Be Connected podcast.
Hello.
So, Carlie, tell us a little bit about your role. You work for Guymer Bailey and you're the studio manager.
Yeah, studio manager for the Brisbane office and also an associate in there. I still do a little bit of project work and generally just help with all things resourcing and HR and a bit
Making
of
the place work.
all trades. Yeah. Yeah.
So, Carlie,
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about your background, because you obviously are an architect or architectural technician by background. You're also married to an
Yeah.
architect as well.
Yes.
So, take us
Yes.
through the career history first that sort of brought you where you are today.
Yeah, so I'm an architectural technician, so I never went to uni or anything like that and never got that far. But I started out just studying at TAFE and worked my way pretty much from second year through that course. So I started in the industry very young. I was only 19 when I got my first job in the industry.
Can I ask what decade that might have been in?
There was a 90s in there at that point.
I think we were all. Oh, no, hang on. No, mine was the 2000s. All right. So there was still a 90s.
Yeah, it was the 90s. And it was a exciting time and meeting lots of amazing people who now when you think about who those people are, they're quite high in industry and well known. So you realize how old you are when you know lots of influential
I think,
people
Carlie,
in there.
it's probably more of a case that, when people are starting out in their careers, that you don't know what your future is going to hold. You don't know where you're going to end up. But I think that's one of the things is that at the end of the day, no matter a leader, and you go through this progression, we can have that discussion as well. But everybody is a person at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Everybody has a journey. And you probably met them an earlier part when you guys, like most of us in our 20s and starting our first jobs, having a heck of a lot of fun and enjoying ourselves. And then as time goes on, we become more responsible for the people who are having that fun and getting the work in the door and making sure the business runs really well.
Yeah, I was at a girlfriend's daughter's 30th a few weeks ago and met someone there who I've met before but never really knew what he did for a job, and I found out what he did and I was like, wow, okay, so our paths are going to cross soon. And yeah, you just start, it's just because we're old. But yeah, that's good. So yeah, and at 22, got the travel bug and I went overseas on a 6-week tour, came back, saved up enough then and ended up living in London for 2 years, which is where I met my husband. We were an office romance in London. He's Irish, so we then moved to Dublin and I ended up living and working in Dublin for 3.5 years. So this 22-year-old that got a bit of a travel bug didn't come home until she was about 27, 28. So
that sounds like a life lived, may I just say. I think that's if I was to give advice now back in my 20s, I'd be thinking, definitely go over travel before you, buy the house, do the kids, all those things.
And being that person in a place where you don't know anybody and learning about different cultures and just traveling and seeing how different people live and living that life as well. Yeah, I had a very blessed beginning in my career, and then we moved back here and bought a house and started having children. So
I think that's one of the things that's really interesting, right? Like I often get asked advice from people, should they go and do an architectural degree or should they go to TAFE? And funnily enough, having been in the industry for years, I probably would say I did economics as a degree, right? And there's this study of where you look at the amount of education you get for this, the return that you get out of being able to earn income. And I would probably say that the best return is obviously doing the technical degree because we love our graduates, but often we have to then teach them how a building goes together because,
Yeah.
buildings need to stand up and need to be built and all of those types of things. What do you personally think? You've obviously mentored people and seen people grow. I mean, we're not saying we want a whole world of non-architects, but I think for somebody who's looking at architecture, it's a great way in. I've known lots of people who do that. And then if they want to go off and do the actual degree later, they do that and then get that bigger thinking.
Yeah, I've been getting involved with QUT a lot more recently and talking to their grads and people looking for internships, and it's really flagging how much they don't learn in the project,
All
in
right.
the degree. And some of our more recent grads in the office have started writing like a program for new grads to come on board and start. And it's what they didn't teach you at uni is the name of the list. And
What are some of
yeah,
the things that are on that list?
oh, all sorts. Yeah, there's a lot. Like, from taking minutes to big
Yeah,
parts of the
all the practical things.
Clarkitecture, as we
Yeah,
call it.
yeah,
Yeah, and it also depends on the person. And there's just not there's so many degree courses and things out there now, but there's not as much work, for that number and that volume of students to come
yeah.
through. So where a while ago you would have been able to work your way through a degree and get all that practical experience, and you had mentors on tap and experienced people to give you advice. It's just not as easy for them now. So, yeah.
And I think that is really hard. Like we recently just I put out a poll the other week. Is it hard to get a job, in your start of your career, at the end of your career? And I think, or at all stages, and obviously majority
Yeah.
is at the end or at the start. And I think that is the most difficult thing. I think, the industry is about to go through another lot of change as well as we see the effects of AI come into effect more. Obviously, architecture is being affected more probably. I know I was talking to a consultant, it's like, 10% of the fee has always gone to the consultants. Then you've got the project managers. Now you've got like 7 or 8 different consultants in there. So that percentage has gone down. And obviously, that's got smaller and smaller for the architecture fraternity as
Mm,
well. And I'm obviously been working with architects for years. Design element is always the element that I feel is most undervalued generally within the process. But if you don't do the design fact right, then you'll be paying for it a lot more later on.
yeah.
So it is so important that we're teaching those people. All right, well let's have a little bit of a chat. I mean, Bailey, so tell us a little bit about the values and some great things that you guys do, because obviously I work with a lot of different people, a lot of different firms, and I must say, in having met Guymer Bailey, both in Melbourne and in Brisbane, you guys have an incredible value set, I feel, and one of those really lovely places to work, and that's what most.
Yeah. Yeah, I think in October I'll have been with GBA for 10 years, and I still regularly get reminded of how lucky I am to be there. And, there's a saying about the fish rots from the head down, and it really does start from the top. So the attitude from the two directors is really good, and they're very caring and supportive of their staff and know that they're their greatest asset. So it's really just working with them all. And I think some of my proudest things have come when I've reflected back to other times in my life. Like I can remember one point I was working part time. I had a toddler and I don't know, must have been a 9-month-old baby at that point in time, working part time, and I'd put in for some annual leave. And whoever I was reporting to at the time, this was not in an architectural office, I'll just say, but the response was, "Why should you get those holidays? You don't deserve them. You don't work full time." And so little comments like that I'd had earlier in my career, I'm just so proud that that's not the case anymore, and especially not at GBA. And the other day I was showing my husband some posts on just our general Brisbane channel, and it was all these dads in one afternoon. 3 dads one was doing school pickup, one was going to a parent teacher interview, and one was at a school sports event or something. And I was just
Mm.
like, this never happened. You were lucky if the mums got the time off to do that. And I think if we can just treat staff like people and treat them as adults, and it all just comes down to communication after that. So if they
Absolutely.
communicate and we communicate our expectations, then everyone knows where they sit.
And that's it. I mean, I always love when people go, "Oh, how do you have a tough conversation?" I'm like, just be open and honest and treat the person like a human being. I mean, you and I have both been in positions we've had to let people go, and there's so many occasions that I hear the horrible ways that those things are handled versus treating somebody like a human being and having an honest conversation with them, whatever the circumstances are. Whether you're having a good, a positive, or a difficult conversation, actually just it's a person at the end of the day. As I said, a leader is still a human being, who goes home to the kids or has this or that or has things going on in their lives as well. So we've just got to remember that. And I think that's it. At the end of the day, it's in the benefit of a business too, because if you actually understand that your people are humans at the end of the day and things happen and they have needs in their lives, you will actually get the best out of them.
Yeah.
Right? That swings and roundabouts, and if it doesn't work, then that person's not the right fit. I love this. A friend of mine the other day posted, she was like, it's very simple whether people should be in your team or not. Would you rehire them again? And I was like, that is just the simplest question ever. If you can simply say, would I rehire this person? Then that's the person that you'll be working with. If they're not, you wouldn't rehire them, then they're probably not the right fit. And that is so you've given your take. And I think you guys do that. I noticed when I walked into your office the first time in Brisbane, obviously the rainbow flag was everywhere.
Oh, was it? Yeah.
I can't remember, it was a week or something that I walked into. So that probably leads me a little bit to, you've obviously done a lot within this space as well, within the Pride space, and that's where you and I have connected as well and on neurodiversity. So can we talk a little bit about some of the other programs and things that GBA has been really supporting people on, probably a more diversity inclusion point of view?
Yeah, so there's the flexibility in the workplace and just that communication piece, but protecting mental health and just being diverse in all areas. It's not just about women's lib anymore. It's about all the LGBT needs. It's about multicultural needs and just treating people like people. So, and it's okay. If somebody has different needs or whatever, that's okay. We just need to learn about it and work around it. So I've raised 2 children with neurodiverse needs in the education space, and through that experience, I've always wanted to educate others around what those needs might be. Like, I can remember being very judgy about people's spelling, and lo and behold, I ended up with a child that's severely dyslexic, and just learning to understand their life. And then if you throw in ADHD on top of that or autism, it's just learning to understand and work with those people. And again, they're just people. So, and we're all different.
Oh, and we all have different strengths, and we call it the spicy personalities, where it's strengths in different areas and others. Look, I'm obviously neurodiverse myself, so I get that, and I hid it for many years. Don't worry, I even did a dyslexic thing this morning. I was like, sorry guys, calling it out on that one. So, but these things come up. So you guys also put in a fantastic 9-day fortnight, and that was something you and I obviously had a chat. I was working with a client the other day. We were looking to do it in some different ways. We had a bit of a chat about some of the things that you guys did and you put in. So let's talk a little bit about that. What was the driver for it? And then some of the things that you considered, and then some of the things that were foreseen and unforeseen.
Yeah, so I think it's 2 years we've been doing it for now. So we had done a poll in the office, and a few of us as seniors had thought it sounded like a really good idea, but without really knowing what it actually meant until you start digging into it. But the more I dug into it, the more I wanted it for myself. And we've really seen, especially for the seniors, around burnout and just having that space where you don't have to run around like an idiot in your lunch break to try and get to the dentist or whatever. You can now just look in the calendar and go, well, that'll be my Friday off. And
Yeah.
we've got the whole office closed. So it
Yeah, we
also,
discussed different options with that. So why was
yeah.
the reason that you guys went with we're all in or we're all out? What were some of the considerations?
One of the considerations was like through COVID and stuff, you were always trying to work out who was in on what day. And that way it was just everyone was the same. And it caused some issues as well. Like some people might have had childcare booked on a Friday, for example, or, it wasn't
Yeah.
a date that they wanted. So it didn't work for everyone. But it just meant that for the seniors, it's treated like a Sunday. And from a
Yeah.
HR perspective, that's what we have to treat it as because the office is closed. So there's there's a rule around that, you don't message people on that day, you don't send emails. So it's not drawing people into the sphere the same as it would if everything was ticking along and running, you can often be having people that work part-time and get drawn into the office or into meetings or things on their days off, and it just minimized that. And
And
I'm
how
not
did
going to say like there are still people that still do have to work sometimes.
But essentially, it's meant that instead of there being a bunch of people and then somebody gets a message and it causes them anxiety, which it will, you're out and about doing your shopping, you're at the doctor and you go, this, you're like, oh shit, I need to get my computer. What's this? That
Yeah.
doesn't stop. So
Yeah.
obviously, I'm sure on the other side, there was considerations around, okay, well, we're going to actually close the office. How are clients going to deal with this? How are projects? And how's that gone?
Yeah, we had one MC at the time didn't support it. And, it was a big building site. So we just had a few guys that were on a roster that would just be available to answer phone
Yeah,
calls or go out there onto site if it was necessary. We still get the odd time where we'll be requested for meetings. And because we're a flexible workplace, we just say you just make up the hours across that. Our pay cycle is a fortnight. So long as they can make their timesheets add up somehow,
yeah.
that's how it works. So it allows a lot more flexibility in that mindset
Yeah,
straight up.
absolutely. Well, you and I
Yeah.
had that conversation. I rang you the other day when I was doing it with a client because there's multiple different ways of skinning the
Yeah.
cash, and we obviously spoke about that other people had asked the same thing, and it's sometimes the unforeseen challenges that you see. We ended up actually writing a whole guide on this and how to actually go about it. So through Bill PX, our HR company, and we've looked at all the pros and the cons and gone through all the considerations from payroll and timesheet perspective.
Yeah.
Our client, we offered, they pay on a monthly point of view, and we said, okay, they had the intention, they wanted, it was an agreement between them. And then it was already sort of a done deal. And then we provided them with advice, and we actually ended up going with a monthly sort of well-being approach because we also want to be B Corp orientated.
Yeah.
And so the same thing as you said, the 9-day fortnight or having this as a well-being day and proportioning it then to what it is. It'll be interesting over time to see what the challenges are. You always to see what those are as you go through. So now you've done that for 2 years, and I see
Yeah.
other firms have done the same thing. I think it's always great to do a trial first between doing that. Then all that you can always think you think of everything, but then
Yeah.
actually being able to see what didn't we think of. I also love, and you and I obviously share the same values in that essentially just ask people. Don't presume because you're the leadership team we're going to do something.
No, and it
Actually
was very
survey people.
collaborative in that approach. Like we got a lot of careful advice from a HR and also from a HR lawyer for a couple of things too. And, with the different awards that we're dealing with and different things. So we did do quite a bit of consultation, and one of our less senior staff conducted a survey so that people could
Okay.
give their opinion, and they did it at 1, 3 and 6 months so that we could, look at all the
Absolutely.
issues that people came up with.
And
And
then
yeah, it
change
was,
around some of the administrative elements as well and figure out what is
yeah,
good. Well, that's great
yeah,
to hear. So I think it's a really lovely value add. I think, we know in the industry it's not necessarily a 9 to 5 job. You just can't clock off, building
No.
sites open early, things happen, projects have deadlines. As much as you can resource and plan to the nth degree, it's just not a linear industry.
No.
Things constantly are changing, it's dynamic, things are happening all the time. So to take that approach, and I think particularly in this industry and for architects as well, but even those in building, it's hard. I mean,
Yeah.
about a lot of the construction and the construction world actually has a lot of RDOs and speculated already. So these things are already considered into there. All right. So let's talk now a little bit about some programs that you've personally gone and developed. So
Mm.
you talked a little bit about your family, but
Yeah.
also you have actually created a CPD program
Yeah.
on transgender inclusion in the workplace as
I
well,
did.
and a bit of a training and insight. So do you want to talk us through a little bit about what inspired that to start with?
Yeah, yeah. So my daughter came out as transgender a couple of years ago, and at the time she was in an all boys school and starting year 12. So are you still there? Oh, it went
Yeah, yeah, I'm
frozen.
sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's all
Yeah.
right. I'm
Yeah. Um, so at the time, the school asked my husband and I to speak to all of the teaching staff and just explain to them what it meant, really, because they wanted all of the teaching staff to have a better understanding of the journey. And she was the first one in the school. So we went and did that. And then that kind of turned into me doing a bit of an Ida Hobbit presentation at the office. And then I think one of the younger architects in the office got behind me and love that younger generation and their energy. She said, you should develop a CPD with that. So I actually spoke to the Institute and all the imposter syndrome comes in. I'm not an architect. I'm a straight white female. Who's going to want to hear this from me? But yeah, they did. And the last couple of years, I've presented to a couple of the bigger firms like Hassel, Lyons, Architectus, and even Mission Australia asked me to present to their corporate team. I haven't done a very good job of, selling myself this year, but yeah, it's still there. And really what I talk about is just being a great ally and how to be an awesome ally to the LGBT community. And while 75% of the time you're preaching to the converted, um, if I can say that I've captured one straight white male in that audience to understand a little bit better about the understanding of that community, I feel like I've done my job.
Yeah.
And I
And
get
I
some
think
really big hugs
sometimes
after the presentation sometimes too.
absolutely, and I think so, and I think it is incredible. At the end of the day, I understand the imposter syndrome, and look, it would be fantastic, but sometimes it's really hard for people to be able to speak up or there to be enough representation. So
Yeah,
I think the power of allies to be able to help people within that story, but also that personal connection with that as well. And
yeah,
I've obviously seen the program, and we've gone through it, and I think it's a very lovely educating and understanding first, which
yeah,
I think is always the first step within anything. And then just appreciation. The rest of it is, just being able to have a safe space that people can ask questions and do that. And I think sometimes if you are an ally versus somebody who identifies, it can be a lot easier for both of those things because it
yeah,
doesn't feel people
yeah,
don't
that's
necessarily have to feel
right.
like they're asking as many stupid questions and they might offend somebody in it,
Yeah,
is that they can actually ask and be able to do that. So I think that's a lovely part of the program. And I do, we'll obviously put your details at the end within the
mm.
show notes if anybody does want to reach out to you to do that. So I
And
think it's
it's
great.
really these now that with all the Fair Work laws, it's everybody's business and every employer's business to be a great ally now too. So while I wrote it in line with the architecture CPD requirements so that they can get their certificate and their 1 point at the end, it can be really of benefit to any business that wants to explore their diversity, equity, inclusion policies.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's fantastic. At the end of the day, it's one of those things that I think it's education, understanding, and just raising awareness in those
Yeah.
worlds. So let's talk about one of those things that interlinks this, but back into your office. And we've had this
Mm.
conversation before about gender neutral toilets. So
Yeah.
I know, I love it. So I walked into your studio, and essentially your easiest solution is just a piece of paper that is stuck up near the door. And what does that piece of paper say?
It says, "Whatever, just wash your hands."
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
I know when we had Chris on the
Yeah.
podcast, he was like, "Oh God, no one talks about gender neutral toilets. It seems to be a bigger deal than it really needs to be."
Yeah.
And I think where I've seen it done really well is, that's why I loved yours. It's just like whatever. Who
Yeah.
cares? We don't really care. Just wash your
Yeah.
hands.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It depends on what the setup for people is in their offices as well. But it's
Yeah.
obviously been done, and you can change signage around really well. So
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
I just found that one of those things walking in. So if anybody is ever thinking about those types of things, there's some really easy solutions out there. And don't think about, my advice would be, don't overthink things. Just how do you make it not a deal?
Yeah.
Really, at the end
Yeah,
of the
that's
day,
right.
which I think you guys have done really well. So, I mean, as things continue to evolve, and studios are all, or organizations are all at their own stages,
Mm.
right? As you said, a fish rots from the head, and different leaders are in that. What would be some of your advice for people out there who may not feel that they have as, what am I going to say the right word here? Sophisticated or open minded leaders. And how do you think people can actually create an influence in their organization?
Yeah, I thought about that a little bit. I suppose championing change is an important one, and recognizing where the gaps may lie, and protecting mental health. It's a really big one and can affect people in so many different ways. And,
Mm,
I openly will speak about my own mental health, and sometimes it takes people to recognize that in themselves, or to have had something happen in their lives that they can reflect on before they can recognize that. But, generally, in a HR sense, people can suck, but they can also be really great humans.
yeah.
And if we can tap into the great human side, then we can get the best out of people and have them feeling that they're bringing themselves to work, they're being transparent, and they're being understood.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Mm.
I think the first thing when we're talking about creating inclusive environments is that people can be heard. Sometimes having programs like yours is about, oh, okay, that's okay to have that conversation. As I've mentioned previously, when I started my company, it was the time when gay marriage was out there, and the company I was starting at, Grey Hudson, put it up there that they were encouraging it, or supporting the referendum, and that just made a big difference,
Yeah.
right? So sometimes it's about what you are putting out there. Obviously, we're living in a world where, luckily, we don't live in the United States, where there's a lot of love and there's a lot of hate, and
Yeah.
you're going to only continue to get fed that. But at the end of the day, a workplace is a place we all come together. We need, we're human beings. We're not machines. We're not AI. You can't just type in and that's it, and it just happens. We need to work together as a team as well. And we're going to have people who are different in multiple
Mm.
ways, whether it's they've got a diverse background to us or identify differently to us. At the end of the day, sometimes they spell well, sometimes they've got a good, design eye, sometimes they're great at communicating, sometimes they're not great at communicating.
Yeah.
We all have our strengths and our weaknesses, and really being able to play to those, or understand how we get the best out of each person, but
Yeah.
also how we align a team and how we actually do that as well. So it's all very well talking about all the fluffy stuff, but at the end of the day, we are obviously looking for people who are a good fit within the team, and good human beings, and respect each other as well,
Mm.
and enable a team to come together and get the best out of each other as well.
Mm.
Now, I'm just going to take a slight flip back there for a little bit. So
Yeah.
I know you obviously said you started back in the 90s, okay, which
Yes.
really isn't that long ago. But now I realise, when I put my son's date of birthing, he was born in 2020, and I'm getting very old very quickly. But tell us a little bit about what you've seen as a change within the industry over your lifetime.
Well, the first project that I ran as a project architect was in Dublin, and I would have to drive 3 hours to get to this site and spend the whole day there answering queries and, being hammered with questions from consultants and different trades on site all day. And I remember the managing contractor down there used to very proudly say that he'd cleaned up a toilet for me before I arrived. And that meant taking down the titty posters and, they'd all been warned not to wolf whistle and all that sort of thing. So
Yeah,
I'm really glad we've come a long way from that,
I
that
know.
you can expect that there'll be a female toilet, and B, you won't see things like that up.
Not all the time, but yes, it is
Yeah.
definitely getting better. I mean, it's one of those things. I think I've shared this story before. My partner started a construction company, been females there before, but there were no sanitary bins. There was, the blokes asking when they got female apprentices or female um,
Yeah.
trades on, oh, why are they going off all the time? It's like, mate, clock
Yeah.
it. Come on.
Yeah.
But that is obviously the world and how we've evolved in that time. And where do you
Yeah.
think then, looking forward, where do you see the next 20 years heading?
I think what I hope for, and I've had this conversation with a few people through the Building Pride network as well, is that, diversity and equity won't just mean equality for women, it'll just be equality for all. So
Yeah.
whether you're of a different racial background or depending on what your home situations might be, all of that will just come into play and we'll just be better humans.
We are who we are, and we
Yeah.
accept that we are just individuals, nothing needing to be identified and those types of
Yeah.
things as well. And look,
Yeah.
I really wish I could say that I don't hear stories of people still going on site and females still going on site, worrying about what they need to wear and what they're doing, and sometimes being treated differently. And I think on our last podcast with Chris, he shared some fantastic things, which is essentially, the
Yeah.
culture you walk past is the culture that you accept. And
Yeah.
we really need to think about that leaders who are on site need to be leading by example and pulling people up and saying that's actually not okay. So I think it will
Yeah.
continue to evolve as we
Yeah.
go through the
I
next
think
part.
the sites aspect is still tough. And yeah, like I got some pronoun stickers printed up for our guys to put on their hard hats when they walk out onto site and things. So I know it can seem like a small thing, but that can mean all the difference for one
Yeah.
person if they're struggling. So
Absolutely, and just to identify and to be able to do that. So I think
yeah.
that's great. All right, so just to close out, we always ask somebody a bit about your favourite book, podcast, or resources that you think are inspiring or worth people checking out.
Okay, well, if you ask serious Carly, from a HR work perspective, I've found a lot of synergies in the Let Them theory by Mel Robbins lately.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Have got I listen to the audiobook and then I end up buying the hard copy book because I want to reflect back to things. Last year, I was doing a big martial arts grading, and my
yeah.
obsession last year was can't hurt me. And so there was a lot of analogies about who would go down the foxhole with me and different things like that. And then if you go to Fun Carly, I really enjoy like watching Drag Race. That's a good way
I
to just turn off your brain
love
and
it. I love it.
soak in some people
It's on
differences.
Stan if you don't know what we're talking about.
Yeah,
I just love how creative they are. But my
yeah.
partner got into it during COVID, and my partner's like, no, you can't watch
So
that.
good. So good. You can't feel bad at the end of one of those shows. And then from a podcaster, I really enjoy listening to Em Rossiano. She came out with a podcast through um, COVID, and she's
Mm.
neurodiverse and she champions a lot of great things. She's not everybody's cup of tea from a comedic point of view, but I really like
Yeah,
listening to
great.
her and some of the things she sheds light on.
No, that's good. Thank you for sharing those. I am obviously quite well versed in Mel's podcasts and things like that. So
Yeah,
I have had the book on the list. So I will definitely give it a bit of a add it to
definitely
my
do it.
audio book list, and I go through a few
Do
a
it.
week. So
Yeah.
that sounds like it's a nice way to wake up in the morning to listen to
Yeah.
her and a bit of inspiration. Excellent. Thank you, Carly, so much for all of your time and giving us all of those insights. And look, if anybody is interested in the CPT program that Carlie has, please reach out to her on LinkedIn. We'll include her details in the show notes, and definitely we'll even see if we can do some things on that too with you. But I think it's been a fantastic insights. Guymer Bailey obviously is a delightful place to work. You're doing some fantastic things there. If there's any studios or anybody wants to reach out to figure out, how have they done it and how is it working?
Happy to
Then please reach out at any time. And I know Carlie would be happy to share. All right, guys, enjoy the rest of your day. See ya.
Satan.
What a great chat we had with Carlie. What a fantastic and inspiring person. It was great to hear a bit about her background, how she got into the role that she's been doing, and also what fantastic things that they've been doing at Guymer Bailey and her CPD program. If you're keen to reach out to Carlie, please check our show notes. Her LinkedIn will be included, and also the notes into her great podcasts and suggestions. If you'd like to be interviewed or would be interested in being able to share your story as well, please get in touch with us. If you enjoy the show, please follow and listen along to the next one. Thanks.